when the activists justifiably wanted some say in their fate being where is the research going, what about access to clinical trials, I became the face of the federal government. So when they started demonstrating, they were demonstrating on campus in front of my office, like, why aren't you releasing more drugs, not realizing that I'm not the FDA, I don't do that. Why don't you do this and why don't you do that? So what I did is that I brought them into my office the first time ever anybody did. So rather than have them arrested, I sat down and started to listen to what they were saying, and it became clear to me that despite the drama, despite the theater, they were making absolute perfect sense.
ACT UP wanted to speed up the approval process for new drugs.
One of our greatest demonstrations and most famous was at the FDA.
We are the experts, let us in! We are the experts, let us in! We are the experts.
And it was over 1,000 demonstrators, almost all people with HIV, demanding to be heard.
I know that there are drugs out there that can save my life, and I want to know why they're not being tested more quickly.
Seize control! Seize control! Seize control!
I began to get beyond the rhetoric and the theater of the demonstrations and to really listen to what it is that they were saying. So I invited a group of them up to my conference room, and we spent a couple of hours talking about their concerns. And again, it just confirmed in my own mind that most of their concerns were really quite valid.
Some of the concerns that I guess the dissident side raises is that AZT is contraindicated for everyone except pregnant women, children, and people in third world countries. How does that work? What's your response to that?
Well, that's an absolutely ridiculous position. It's totally false. We give AZT all the time to patients with HIV disease.
In monotherapy?
No, we don't use monotherapy ever. We use AZT as part of a combination regimen. But let me ask you something. Do you believe that HIV causes AIDS?
That's the general position. I mean, that seems to be the prevailing wisdom on it.
Do you personally believe that HIV causes AIDS?
I don't have enough information either way, personally.
Are you one of the dissidents?
A dissident? No.
How can you say you don't have enough information if you're doing a documentary on this topic?
I'm forming an opinion based on the information that I gather.
Honestly, Robin, if you're at this meeting, you should have had an opinion formed before coming here.
That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. I mean, I can see that you're a man who stands powerfully behind that idea.
I stand powerfully and passionately behind that idea. And I'm concerned that if you are someone who is going to waffle on this topic, that you will attempt to edit my remarks in a way that will make me look foolish.
I will not do that. I'm not out to take anyone's dignity or anything. I'm trying to put together a series of interviews that bring enlightenment to the subject. That's it.
As far as I'm concerned, and I hope this view is adequately represented, those who attempt to dispel the notion that HIV is the cause of AIDS are perpetrators of death. And I would very much, for one, like to see the Constitution of the United States and similar countries have some means in place that we can charge people who are responsible for endangering public health with charges of endangerment and bring them up on trial. I think that people like Peter Duesberg belong in jail.
We don't say Toyotas and Mercedes shouldn't be sold here because we want to sell General Motors. But when it comes to science, we act in America like the Pope acts in Rome. There's only one truth and only one direction to march in.
One of the distinguishing features of modern science is skepticism, the spirit to challenge other people's work, the spirit to challenge your own work. And I fear that this spirit is disappearing, in particular in the case of HIV and AIDS. Anybody that speaks up against or challenges some of the entrenched paradigms or principles is not only not welcome, but they are strongly criticized to the point of being called names, bigots, homophobes, baby killers, flat earthers, Holocaust deniers. Certainly, this would indicate to me that the spirit of skepticism, the spirit of challenge, the spirit of scientific debate in this field is virtually completely gone.
Someone who would perpetrate the notion that HIV is not the cause of AIDS is perhaps motivated by sentiments of pure evil, that such a person may perhaps really want millions of people in Africa and elsewhere to become infected by this virus and go on to die of it. And who knows, maybe there's a hidden agenda behind the thoughts of a madman. Maybe all psychopaths everywhere have ways of getting their views across that are sometimes camouflaged in subterfuge. But I suggest to you that Peter Duesberg is probably the closest thing we have in this world to a scientific psychopath.
There are a lot of other scientists that raise the challenges that he raises.
And now the interview's finished. Thanks.
I had all the students I wanted, I had all the lab space I needed, I got all the grants awarded, I was elected in the National Academy, I became California Scientist of the Year, all my papers were published. I could do no wrong almost, professionally that is, until I started questioning the claim that HIV, or the hypothesis that HIV is the cause of AIDS. Then everything changed.